Yeah, definitely. We're all waiting for that. And yeah, we got that information yesterday for the new leadership of the Africa Development Bank. But yeah, definitely what's going to happen next. And we're going to take stock and what's played out so far. Agriculture has long stood at the heart of Africa's economic and social transformation. Over the years, the African Development Bank has played a pivotal role in driving agricultural development through initiatives such as the Feed Africa, supporting infrastructure innovation, finance and resilience across the continent, and also in Nigeria. But let's talk to Tunde Banjoko now, the CEO of Banjoko Farms. Join me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Laddie, for having me. Good afternoon.
Yeah, so definitely we have a new leadership, and we see, yeah, Mr. Dr. Akinwumi Adesina actually bowing out at some point when his tenure elapses. But definitely, there's a new leadership coming, at this point. But let's take stock. Um, what has it been like, so far? I know you're a big player in the agricultural sector in Nigeria. How do you see Dr. Adesina's leadership and the impact, in agriculture in Nigeria and Africa?
Okay, so I would say congratulations first to Dr. Akinwumi Adesina. It's a pride that such a person is coming from Nigeria. His impact, the impact of his leadership was not only felt in Nigeria, but the whole of Africa. So I say congratulations to him and wish him the very best in his next assignment. So looking at what his impact has been in agriculture, he really came up with several initiatives, not only in Nigeria, maybe we'll talk about the one he did in Africa, of which Nigeria is part of. For Nigeria, he initiated the special agro-industrial processing zone, like you highlighted recently, just a few minutes ago. And that's really a very strategic project. And the way it's been organized in such a way that is not just run by them, with their other partners, the state also involved. Being a government-private partnership project with such organization, I think is going to revolutionize food production. And what are they looking at in this thing? They want to have a hub for production, for processing, and even for distribution, where each state will focus on where they have comparative advantage, which has always been the cry for most of us in the sector, that if each state, each region will focus like we did in the 60s, because that's what actually happened in the 60s. Every region focused on where they had comparative advantage. And that's the same thing we are doing. And like you look at what they are doing, they've launched two phases in Nigeria now. They've launched in Kaduna, where Kaduna will be focusing on maize, soya beans majorly, and then they've launched in Cross River. Cross River will be doing cocoa, cassava, rice. They are coming to Ogun State. Ogun State will be doing cassava, will be doing rice. The same thing with Oyo. Imo is focusing on dairy. So it's a very good initiative that once every state plug into this project, food production. And one thing that African Development Bank, Dr. Kim Adesina has been emphasizing is the fact that we have to reduce our dependency on importation. Through this, we reduce dependency on importation. There will also be rural development. And if there's rural development, then our rural-urban migration will also reduce, meaning we'll have a lot of investment also going into those communities. Like recently, you see some street lights being done and all those things, transformer and all those things. So I think it's a very good initiative that Dr. Akinwumi Adesina initiated. And I think I give him applause for that. The other one is also the tax that he also initiated in Nigeria and other African countries. Transforming Africa agriculture through technology. Now they are doing that in collaboration with IIT and some other partners, where they are bringing technology into agriculture, mechanization. They've done the first phase. Now they're in the second phase, where technology is being encouraged. And during this, we saw how you can transform cassava through mobile processors on the farm. We've seen a lot of mechanization now. They also introduced the cassava planter, cassava harvesters. If I'm right, I think they introduced it through the TAT project, and that's really helped with commercial agriculture, meaning you can do large scale. because you have planters, you have harvesters. They did a lot in that space. So they are bringing technology into agriculture where we can use technology, mechanization, improve seedlings, fertilizers, and all that. So those are some of their initiatives in Nigeria. They also did a community-driven project where the community should be involved. They spearheaded the conversation that the community should be involved in the issues affecting them, so that it should be a joint, solution, and that they can own the solution and bring about development to their community. So that's for the Nigerian sector. And we also benefited in some of the other initiatives, like the one they did the African Food Emergency Facility, for example, after the Ukraine war. They did that in 33 states. That's a very laudable, 33 countries rather, in Africa. That's a very laudable project because we saw the impact of the Ukraine war on Africa. So it did something very fast. What he did was to say, okay, most countries are affected because we relied on Ukraine, Russia for some of our grains. So what did they do? They quickly came up with strategy to give grains, seedlings, fertilizers to farmers in 33 countries in Africa. So that's a very laudable and timely intervention that I think should be sustained. And then we also look at the food safety for Africa that they also initiated, that they want to end poverty in Africa. They want to end the level of extreme poverty, malnutrition in Africa. Those are also very good initiatives. We'll also look at their agri-food SME financing mechanism, whereby they want to look at how can funding get to farmers, smallholder farmers, without much bureaucracy
Right.
to their various partners.
Yes, Mr. Badriko, that takes me to my next question. Definitely talking about access. For some of these smallholder farmers, how do you see the efforts so far? How have they impacted those rural livelihoods? Food security, poverty reduction, across member states. How would you quantify that?
For the SAPZ, it's a new initiative, so it will be difficult to measure the impact, because even though the conversation has been on for some time, but the implementation just started. So we can't say much about the SAPZ. Farmers are just plugging into that. But for the TAT, I can speak for the TAT a little. I think most communities benefited from the mechanization because they could see large operations and when you have large operations, people doing 1,000 hectares, 2,000 hectares, you definitely will have to involve the locals in your operations. So I think that if you go to a state like your state now, which is one major hub for cassava, you see that they've actually revolutionized a little Oyo and a part of Ogun. Now people do a bit of large-scale farm in those communities because of the impact of mechanization. And of course, it impacted their income and revenue. So I could speak for those. And then in countries like Ethiopia, when they introduced some varieties for them, for their wheat, Ethiopia doubled their annual wheat production. So I could also speak for Ethiopia and some of those, Eastern nations. So those would be my comment on their impact that can be verified.
Right, and definitely there's a new leadership now, and very soon, once Dr. Kiwumi's tenure, elapses, then they'll take the new leadership will take over. But what do you think is the agenda, for this new leadership? Where do you think they should continue the effort, so far from what we've seen? What do you think they should change, going forward?
I would say congratulations to the new AfD president first, Mr. CD Code. He should continue some of those initiatives because our problems in Africa are actually similar. All African countries, we are still battling poverty. We are still battling low yield and mechanization. So I would say for now in the agri space, the SAPZ, Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone project, that is in most African countries should still continue because most of them are at their initial stage, except for Ethiopia, like I mentioned, and some other countries. Most countries are still at their initial stage. So they should not halt that project, please. They should continue them. Then the third two is just in the phase two, meaning we've not really seen enough mechanization in Africa. So they should still do everything they can to mechanize our agriculture in Africa with improved seedlings. So those will be my comment for now, that they should continue those things. And then the access to finance, they should find a way to bridge it. Their target is to be able to deal directly with smallholder farmers. They should find the right partners to make sure these funds and grants that they have in mind gets to the smallholder farmers. I think that would be my comment for now.
All right. So, definitely we keep talking about, private sector involvement. What financing models do you think can unlock, more private sector investments in the sector, especially for some of these smallholder farmers and agri-businesses?
For now we are having a lot of educated youths showing interest in agriculture. Two things are like their major constraint. We should bring models that are technologically friendly for them to be able to access the fund. It has to be technologically friendly. If it is technologically friendly, that on their phone, they can provide their details and access the fund, provide the geo map of their farm. I think that's one area we should look at. We also should not forget that most of our operations also happen in rural areas. So the rural community too should not be left behind. So we'll have to look out for maybe working with some microfinance bank in some of this community that can educate the farmers, and then we'll have to also work with most of our workers and farmers in the medium-scale farmers in some of these communities. So we'll have to work with microfinance banks, let them be able to work with the farmers in languages they can understand. And of course, we'll always talk about the interest rate to farmers. It has to be single digits, maybe 6%, 7% with good moratorium. If that is factored in, I think it will be able to boost production in Africa.
All right, definitely. Out for agricultural development on the continent and in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining this conversation. That was Mr. Tunde Banjoko, is the CEO of
Daddy.
Banjoko Farms. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daddy, for having me.